All right. And away we go. I don't.
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killing, pre-cold villains on the mind, got you reeling. 5-star rated from the floor to the ceiling. If you catch a 1-star, no time for feelings. Got a team and DJ on the ones and twos. By the name Beelzebub, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all over two, and prepare to hear the legend of the straight chillin' crew.
What up, nerds, and welcome to another soju-filled episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name is Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode 384, recorded Sunday, August 14th, 2022. Tonight, we're talking about A Tale of Two Sisters from 2003. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy Randu. What's up, man?
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Gentle Mangs. How's it going?
Hello. You're so gentle. I like it.
You know, I never like to go rough on people right away. We'll save that for the latter half of the cast, of course.
I'm also a big fan of your wallpaper, making some changes around the house, I see.
You know, it really just makes me feel uplifted to have a nice wallpaper aesthetic, you know? So
I hear
yes,
that.
thank you for that.
Next up, calling in from South Korea with very similar wallpaper, we got our boy Soju. What's up, man?
Oh, what up? It's your boy Soju. If you can't go classic tonight, when can you do it?
That's right.
It's about time. It's about time we get that Soju sponsorship, don't you think? We need one of those like new craft brews to throw some money our way.
Soju.
Is there a
Coke.
craft soju scene?
There is now. There is
There
now.
is.
Yes, Toki Soju looking at you, making all the big bucks. Send it my way.
Artisanal Sojus.
Yes.
Are you actually drinking any tonight?
No, it was not a soju night for me. I did pick up this little nice like Korean beer from the local convenience store. It's got a nice little picture of our mountain on it, but it's okay. It's not soju though.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Gotcha.
They do not need
really-
to sponsor.
Really angling for that sponsorship.
This is fine. Last but not least, joining us on Straight Chilling for the first time, we do have a very good friend, Sean. Welcome, buddy. How you doing?
Thanks. Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. So you have a podcast called The Dark Side of Soul.
That's right.
Why don't you tell people about it?
Yeah. So I guess like more of a background. So the Dark Side of Soul is a bigger brand. I'm a tour guide. I'm a folklorist and a heritage researcher, and I run a ghost walk in Seoul, which is called the Dark Side of Soul. It was started by my business partner, Joe McPherson, who's also the co-host of the podcast. And the tour is coming up this Halloween. Will be the 10th anniversary of the tour, celebrating 10 years. Maybe about time for Justin to join.
Absolutely.
for
Yes.
this coming Halloween. And so when the pandemic hit, the tourism industry was just ravaged, and we had a really hard go of it. And we were thinking probably for about 6 months or so before the pandemic to launch a podcast, kind of expand the brand a little bit. We do have a comic book as well that I wrote. And finally, but we didn't really have time to do a podcast. But when the pandemic hit, we had lots of time to do a podcast. So
Yeah.
and then we said, okay, well, we have to figure out a way to maintain the brand so people can still see it in some capacity. And so we said, okay, well, this is now the best time to do the podcast. And so we launched, I guess it was March 2020, and still going. So we focus on Korean ghost lore, folklore, kind of tragic history, kings killing their prince sons and things like that, and a lot of urban legends, and a lot of lighter stuff as well. And we've also we've had an episode about Korean horror films with the and Korean horror television as well.
Nice.
Yeah,
It's
I've
an
been listening.
unprecedented level of legitimacy for this podcast. I must
I
say.
know, I know. Credibility? What? No, yeah, Sean, I've been listening to you guys since I think last autumn, probably around September, and I started with the episode where you guys were talking about the horror films, like of summer, the way that they do horror films in summer, the chills, and that was something that was always interesting to me, and I kind of stumbled across it and was super excited to find this kind of spooky outlet that dealt specifically with Korean lore, Korean things, topics, and I've been enjoying it ever since, and really have been waiting for the autumn this time because the weather is crazy hot right now. I saw you guys had to cancel because of the rain lately, where everybody was getting flooded out, but I will definitely be coming on this autumn for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Let me know when you're coming up, and then if you I do my tour on weekdays. Okay. And then Joe does the tour on Saturday, Sunday. He's on the tour right now, actually. Okay. If you come up on a Friday, then we can hang out after and have some beers and stuff.
Nice, sounds great.
If it's other day of the week, I gotta head home right after.
We're watching deals happen. This is like interview podcast.
I actually get to hang out with somebody in Seoul who likes horror.
Wow.
Right. And it's you brought up there about how the summer chills of horror films and stuff like that. That's, for anyone who doesn't know, that was a marketing strategy that was developed very likely with Whispering Corridors around 98.
Okay.
And then so this was just off of the 6 months to a year after the Asia financial crisis happened, and Korea was hit really hard by that, and a lot of my father-in-law lost his business, and it was complete chaos here, and people needed outlets for things to do, and so and film, I think, has always been, if you go back to like the Great Depression, film was a great outlet for people to get through that. Black Monday in North America in the late 80s, film was an outlet, and horror is always there. You have that escapism. And so 98, Whispering Corridors came out, extremely popular, and they started this idea of, what's the best way to cool off in the hot Korean summer? Get chills through a horror film. And also the cinemas have air conditioning, so that's another way you can cool off. So so this
around here that means big money.
So and then that it was with Whispering Corridors that really launched this what is now, I guess, kind of considered the boom of Korean horror, because it was stagnant. It was really stagnant for like 25-30 years by that point, and then there were some good classics kind of sprinkled throughout, but Whispering Corridors, and then really the next great film was A Tale of Two Sisters.
A
few years later.
So thanks,
before we get
financial crisis.
Right. We love it. Before we get into the review of the movie, let's tackle a little bit of our housekeeping real quick. Here's another reminder. We do have a poll pick posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this September. The theme for September is Spooky Season Pregame. And the 3 movies to vote between are Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, Hell House LLC, and Sleepy Hollow.
Tell me how those numbers are looking. We're getting midway through August.
Yeah, about halfway there. Hell House is still winning. Sleepy Hollow is in second place, and Halloween 2 is creeping up a little bit.
Bob, you're campaigning over there. I cannot believe Sleepy Hollow is the one losing.
Hell House is pretty solid.
By this.
Yeah.
Everybody just go ahead and move your votes on over to Halloween.
Bob, don't you dare. Don't you dare do it. Not Rob Zombie. Don't you do it.
We got to wrap it up.
The
We
more
gotta
you
wrap this
protest, the
franchise
more
up.
people jump ship, Juice. You got to watch yourself here. I don't want to watch that film, so please.
Got to do it.
They'll bite us in the
Um,
ass.
Get those votes in before September, and we'll see what we're talking about. We're dropping a new mini cast this Friday. If you support us at the $10 level or above, you get access to a whole back catalog of Patreon exclusive episodes. This Friday, I'm dropping a mini cast on a new release called The Innocents.
Bob, that was you
this-
talking about that one, right?
Yeah, that was one that I watched recently and recorded an episode on. And if you haven't seen it, it is going to be on Shudder on the 18th of this month. So it's
Okay.
dropping in a few days. So you can check it out and then listen to my thoughts on it. It's basically a coming of age story about a handful of kids living in this apartment complex. And they all are sort of discovering that they have telekinetic abilities and the good and the bad that comes with that. It's solid. It's pretty dark, pretty twisted, but it's sort of like a weird dark spin on like a superhero kind of thing, I guess you could say.
Isn't it like a Swedish film or something?
Yes, yeah, it's foreign
It's been on
language.
my list for a while, but I haven't been able to find a good stream.
Never heard of
Yeah,
that. As
Yeah,
soon as
Yeah,
you
it's
said-
pretty new.
As soon as you said
Came
The
out-
Innocents, I just thought of Deborah Kerr, the 60,
Yeah.
the 61 film. That's,
right.
That-
Yeah,
That's why Randy was asking if they're connected, but I don't think they are in any way.
No,
Doesn't
no.
sound like it. No.
Yeah.
No.
Not
Does not
quite.
sound like it.
So yeah, that'll be dropping on our Patreon feed this Friday. And I think that's really all we got as far as Patreon is concerned. Do you guys have anything else you need to mention?
I do. So after this episode is released, but before the next one is released, we will have a brand new YouTube video as well. We are actually headed back to the Haunted Hideaway. Bob, we were
Yeah.
in your tiki bar and you were teaching us how to make a classic tiki cocktail, not one of your own this time, but this was the classic zombie. So you want to tell everyone about that one?
We're gonna get done, dude.
Yeah, dude, I had that zombie and it tore me up.
That's a
You-
killer zombie.
Yeah.
You will get done, dudes. Yeah, we shot a little video making the classic zombie tiki cocktail. It is one of the stronger drinks. The legend has it whenever Don the Beachcomber first rolled it out, it was a 2-drink maximum. He'd cut you off if you had 2 zombies. And there's good reason. It is it'll get you there and very quickly. They sneak up on you. But it's a great drink. And if you want to just hear a little bit more about how to make one and also the history of it, check out our youtube.com/straight chilling
/straight chilling podcast. Yes.
There
And
you go.
also we're releasing it before we have to cover Requiem for a Dream because we figured you're gonna need something to get you through that.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a brutal movie.
Yeah, that's our reasoning behind it.
I don't
No
know if a
zombie
depressant is
movie.
the good way to go with Requiem for a Dream.
something. So
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah,
Um,
that'll be dropping I guess in about a week and a half from when this is released. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Mhm.
Check it out. Yeah, I think that's all we got for housekeeping.
His house is clean.
All right, let's jump into the main event. We're talking about A Tale of Two Sisters, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Bob, I know you got this box. This is one that
Got
I
it.
gave you permission to buy this time. I'm not going
Wow.
to
Oh,
thank
any
you.
sass
Thank you
or
so much.
anything about
Oh,
it.
Give me
it's on the green
my
list.
allowance.
Yeah.
It's one of the blues on the green list. Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right.
Uh,
Way to keep
So,
it up
Bob,
and up,
tell us
Bob.
about this box. Something special is going on with this box.
It is a very sexy box. So yeah, I picked the release up from Arrow Video. It looks like this.
Ooh, no, it's clean.
It is Region B, so if you are stateside and you pick it up, just know that you have to have a region-free player to watch it.
Mhm.
But it's a beautiful disc. It's loaded with bonus features, And Sean actually has a bonus feature on this disc where he gets into the folklore that inspired this film and other movies as well, actually.
Yeah, this is actually a bit.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
This is a big motivation of why we specifically talked about this film with Sean. Is Sean, you are on this actual disc.
Yeah, I was contacted by Arrow Media and Arrow Films, and I'm good friends with one of their main. Well, I don't know if he's a main contributor, but he's contributed a lot to their releases. His name is Pierce Conran, and he's on our Dark Side of Soul episode about Korean horror films. So Pierce is a film producer and a film critic, professional critic, and hanging out with him last night. Actually, we got pretty drunk in soul last night, actually, hanging out. So and we were talking about horror movies, of course, and so they were looking for someone to write about or provide some sort of content about the folktale that the film is inspired by. And so Pierce was like, I know the guy. So they got in touch with me and they asked me to pitch my idea, how I would do a video essay. I told them, they're like, yep, that's exactly what we want. And then that was it.
Nice.
So it took roughly.
Oh, she's a fancy flapjack.
So it took roughly. It took about 3 months to fully write it and record it, and I didn't actually do the video editing on it. That was done by someone in house. The editor named I think Jonathan's his name, and so and that's it. And like you're saying, it's a beautiful set with all the other content. Pierce also has a video essay on this as well.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Nice.
Yeah. And so,
cool.
And there's and they also asked me to do a translation of the folk tale. And
okay.
so now the folk tales, of course, it's folklore, so it's an oral tradition. So it can vary from place to place, region to region. So I translated it the way it was first told to me, and I do talk about a little bit in the video essay how I first heard the tale after because I saw the film in cinema in Seoul in 2003. If anyone doesn't know, I've been living in Korea almost 23 years. So I was in Korea when this came out, and it was a huge deal, extremely popular. I went to see it, loved it, and then I heard that it was a folk tale, or it was inspired by a folk tale, and so then part of the my work with the Blu-ray release was doing a translation of the tale itself as well.
Nice.
So the video essay and then translation.
Cool.
And so
Yeah, it's a great.
Were you
disc.
happy with that purchase?
I recommend picking it up. Oh yeah, for sure. Arrow doesn't put out anything half-assed, really. And I've been wanting to see this movie for quite some time, and I was happy to get the chance to pick this one up and actually talk about it with y'all. The movie's from 2003. It's got a runtime of 1 hour and 54 minutes. This was written and directed by Kim Ji-un, and we got a plot synopsis brought to us by the back of the box here. The director, Kim Ji-un, who also directed Bittersweet Life and I Saw the Devil, made his international reputation with this richly conceived, stylishly shot, and genuinely scary chiller, one of the key films of the Korean New Wave. Released from a mental institution, Sumi returns home with her father and her younger sister, Seun, only to face her cold stepmother's strange behavior and the disturbing apparitions that are haunting their house. What dark secret connects them all to the family's past? Gentlemen, had we seen this movie before, and would you recommend people check it out? Juice, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I'd seen this a few times. This is probably my third watch, I think. Of course, when I first moved to Korea, I was looking for Korean horror films, and this one is brought up a lot, and it's something we're going to talk about later, about how this is kind of viewed in the realm of Korean horror in general. But yeah, I had seen it. I really enjoyed it my first time, and it was one of those ones that kind of stuck with me because I think it leaves a lot to be thought about after the film is finished. And so I watched it again for the second time, probably within the first 6 months of watching it, and watched it with like some Korean friends at that time, because I kind of wanted to get a little bit more insight, what was going on, what was their kind of perspective on it. And then I've watched it now. So it's probably been maybe 3 or 4 years since I've seen it, before seeing it again. I would recommend, I think it's a very stylish kind of film. A lot of people kind of compare it to like a fairy tale horror film, which I think is pretty unique in a lot of ways, and I think that fits in description. And yeah, I would recommend people check it out generally. Bob, so was this a first time watch for you? We'll go to you next.
Yeah, this was a first time watch.
Okay.
It's like very lush, like it's just a very rich, beautiful looking film. It reminded me of some aspects of the way Del Toro crafts his movies, like the color palette, and like everything seems to have a great attention to detail, I guess. I really enjoyed it. And it's one of those movies that has like I don't know, it just sort of like hooks you in and keeps you guessing, I guess, throughout the film. And I think it's one that warrants multiple rewatches. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I would recommend it for sure. Sean, you've obviously seen the movie before. Would
Yes,
you recommend people check it out?
Yeah, absolutely. So so like I said, I saw the film in cinema when it was released, 2003. Had probably seen it 2 more times after that, and then when I was hired by Arrow to work on the Blu-ray, I watched it 5 times.
Oh wow.
During that time to get the video essay down. And definitely I'd recommend it. I would argue pretty strongly that it's the best Korean horror film of what it says on the back of the box, the new wave. And I would probably go as far to say it's one of the top 3 best Korean horror films ever made.
High praises. All right. Randy, what about you?
Yeah, so this had been on my list for some time, at least since the beginning of the podcast, as something that I did want to check out, but just never got around to. So this was a first time viewing for me. And on all that time, I had, by accident and then later by intention, managed to avoid pretty much any spoiler because I had read somewhere that it had quite a few twists and turns. So I kind of went into this movie as blind as I possibly could, and I tried to not let since watching it, I haven't like tried to contextualize it in any way. I've just sort of like had my one experience, and I was interested because I know we're going to have somebody who knows quite a bit about the film on to bring that perspective in. So would I recommend? Yeah, I would recommend it. I think it's a pretty effective film in terms of scariness. And it's I would say that I was largely confused for a majority of the film, but not in a way that was like detrimental to my viewing. So that says something, I think. I would generally recommend it. Yeah.
Right on. That is a solid recommendation across the board there. Let's go ahead and drop the spoiler warning, and then we will get into the rest of the film. Here we go.
Spoiler warning.
So Bob, as confusing as this movie was for you, were you able to type up a plot synopsis?
Yes, I do have one here. I believe
right.
It is accurate, but if I get my
Break out the
wires
red
crossed-
pens.
We'll indulge
Yeah.
you for a few minutes.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. All right, here is the synopsis. The movie opens up. We see a teenage girl named Sumi. She's being treated for shock and psychosis in a mental institution. She is then released to return home and live with her sister, father, and her stepmother. The 2 sisters have a strained relation with their stepmom, who's taking an undisclosed medication. Sumi has a nightmare about her mother one evening. The following morning, she finds pictures of her family that prove her stepmother was formerly an at-home nurse for her sick mother. That night, her aunt and uncle come by for dinner, and their stepmother tells a series of wild anecdotes. Their aunt has a seizure. She ends up recovering, and on the ride home, she tells her husband she saw a ghost girl underneath the sink. The stepmother finds her pet bird killed and several of her pictures defaced. She assumes it was the girl's doing it, and she locks Si-yoon, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that.
Su-yun.
Su-yun, thank you. She locks Su-yun into a wardrobe. Sumi releases her and tells her father about the abuse. Her father tells her to stop acting out and that Su-yun is dead. The following morning, the stepmom drags a bloody sack throughout the house, leading to an altercation between her and Sumi. Her father finds Sumi unconscious in the house, and it's revealed that she suffers from dissociative identity disorder, and her other personality is a more extreme, abusive version of her stepmother. The visions Su-yun were hallucinations, and Sumi and her stepfather have been alone the whole time. Her father and real stepmom end up sending Sumi back to the institution. That night, the stepmother hears footsteps in the bedroom, proving that the ghosts are actually haunting the house. Su-yun's ghost crawls out of the closet and kills the stepmom. A flashback reveals the girl's terminally ill mother hanged herself in Su-yun's wardrobe after finding out about her adulterous husband and their in-home nurse. Su-yun tries to revive her mother and accidentally pulls the wardrobe down on top of her. The future stepmom hears Su-yun suffocating and decides to help her until Sumi callously tells her to stop meddling with her family affairs. The stepmother then decides to leave Su-yun to her fate. She tells Sumi she will come to regret this day. Sumi then runs out into the field, blissfully unaware of the fates of her mother and her sister. Roll them credits. How's that sound? Fairly
Good job,
accurate,
Bob.
hopefully?
Good job.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, this movie has a ton of intrigue. Like from the outset of it, like you're dealing with a narrator that you can't necessarily take at face value. Like there's something afoot that is not true, and you're sort of trying to suss it out. And like right from the get-go, I was like, okay, there's just one daughter. Like that was my guess anyways. But they do a great job at sort of misleading you, because when they enter the house, the stepmother like very purposefully addresses both of the sisters separately. And I was like, okay, well, that idea must be out the window there. So what's going on here? And then the big reveal, the huge kicker to me, was like finding out that the stepmom was not really there the whole time. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a wild way to spin a tale, but it was very intriguing and like kept me guessing, kept me engaged with the movie the whole time.
This movie has like 3 to 4 major rug pulls throughout.
Yeah.
And like because of that, what you just said, Bob, and like a few of the other like, subtleties of the movie that I noticed, like this is, I don't remember the last time that I saw a film that hinged itself on the dead all along trope that actually got me. And this one got me. Like I didn't even anticipate that the sister was imaginary. I don't know, like that just never occurred to me. And I guess it's because of those things like you just mentioned, Bob. Like they did a good job hiding it. And honestly, the first, 20 minutes of this film, maybe more, were dedicated to me figuring out, so who's this woman? What's the relationship? I like at one point they start discussing the girl's uncle. And I for some reason got it in my head that her father was her uncle. I was like, so what happened to her dad and mom? Like I was so fucking confused. And that carried on throughout. It made it actually a more effective rug pull each time, because I was like, oh shit. Oh, okay. And it just kept going like that. So this movie hides its math pretty well, I think.
Sean, do you remember seeing this since you saw it in theaters? Do you remember your first kind of reaction to it? And like, what was the general reception at the time? 2003 has been almost 20 years now.
Yeah, well, yeah. So when I watched it, because I hadn't known or I didn't know the folktale yet at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Had already been studying Korean folklore and heritage for a couple of years at that point, but I hadn't heard the folktale. Now the folktale itself is called, the Korean title of the film is Janghwa Honyeon, and those are the names of the sisters in the folktale. So it's
pretty obvious to a Korean audience that if you know the title of the Korean title of this film, that it's obviously tied to the old folk tale. Because that's
right. It's like naming a movie Van Helsing. We would all understand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the Korean title is Janghwa Honyeon. names of the sisters in the folktale, but obviously not the names that they have in the film. And then it's Janghua Hunyan Jun, the name of the tale, and Jun means story or tale. So it's the tale of Janghua and Hunyan. So I knew there was a tale, hadn't heard it yet, saw the film. Yeah, I really loved it. But like you're saying, like there's all these rug pulls, and a lot of time it was just, I was really confused, like what the fuck is going on? Like where is everybody? And who are some of these people? So Unju, the stepmother, is like, okay. So she's a stepmother, but then she wasn't the twist at the end. It didn't completely make sense to me when I had finished watching it the first time, walking out of the cinema, and wasn't entirely sure what was going on. Then I watched it again, so I then heard the folktale, and it was my Korean buddy's father who told it to me. And I went to his house one night, brought some soju and stuff, and we sat down, and he agreed to tell me the story the way he knew it growing up. And so he shared it with me, and which is the way you should really hear ghost stories. They're, especially if they're folk tales, the best way is through, M.R. James doing his whole thing, the Christmas ghost story, getting people together on Christmas Eve to tell them ghost stories and stuff. I think that's the best way to do it. So that's how I wanted to hear the folk tale. I didn't want to read it. So I heard the tale. I was like, man, that's totally different from the film. It's really, really different. But then when I went back and watched the film again, the second time, about a few months later, I got it. Then I understood what was going on. I was able to connect things that were linked to the deeper Korean culture and lore that's kind of tucked into the film.
Okay, so it's not like overtly like, here's the story. It's not like a direct adaptation of Pinocchio or whatever. It's
quite different.
It's just called Pinocchio, so you make a kind of comparison to this folklore.
Yeah, like well, there are similarities. So like in the tale, the things that are similar, there is a stepmother. So the original folk tale is a stepmother tale, which in Korean is called the Kaemodam, and that's a folktale type. So the wicked stepmother folktale type.
I've seen that section of Pornhub. Yeah.
Okay. So the that's what the tale is, and the movie is as well. But it plays on the trope that at the end, Unju, the stepmother, isn't there. She exists, but we know, but she isn't. It's actually Sumi the whole time, like that twist. So it really turns the wicked stepmother folktale on its head, and that really surprised Koreans when they if they knew the tale. They're like, "Whoa, that was a massive reveal for a lot of people." So
would it be fair to say, like I'm thinking of like Return to Oz, like these things where it's like largely could be and everything could be attributed to like a Jacob's Ladder type situation where it's like exists within the reality of one character explicitly, but then is explained through other means, through scientific means or otherwise, like primarily.
Right.
Okay.
That's
helpful to know.
They did make one connection ultimately, because when I was watching this time, I was really paying attention. And the one thing that they did is when you go back to the real flashback, once you know that the mother was not in the house as we were watching it, but we still see her maliciousness, because that is a theme from the original folktale. But we see
evil.
That she's willing to be spiteful. She kind of has this moment where you think maybe she's going to save Suyun, but kind of her interaction with Sumi, and that she's willing to let this girl die, which in the folktale she actively goes out to kill one of them, sends one of her sons to do it. But I still like that they made the connection to show that even though we were spending time with an evil stepmom who wasn't really there, the perception is still true. And there's a reason why Sumi perceives her that way. It's not just a sick young girl who is perceiving an evil mom who's taken her dad away. It's like, no, this bitch really did let a kid die, had an affair,
right.
Is evil towards these girls as far as the little bit that we see. So I like that they still made that kind of cemented as truth as far as we know.
Can I ask a question? Like there's going to be a few clarifying questions I probably have to ask throughout. So was the father involved with Unju?
Unju. Yeah,
Unju.
Unju.
Was he involved with Unju in the present tense of this film, or was that entirely within Sumi's head?
No, he was. But every
Okay.
time we see her, up until we did the reveal that every time we think it's her, but it's actually Sumi, she's not there, right?
Okay.
But there's several times when he's talking to someone on the phone, and we don't know, that's never revealed who it is, because as far as us as the viewer, Unju's in the house, so he's talking to someone on the phone, but we're like, well, who's he talking to? But he's telling the person like, no, we don't know. I can't, if I'm remembering right, he says something like, please come over later, or don't come over yet, or something. I can't remember exactly how that the dialogue goes there, but in the end, if you think back to that scene, he's talking to the real Unju on the phone, but it's never revealed. So she's present, but not visually present, not there. It's Sumi the whole time. Yeah.
So like that's, I mean, honestly, her role, like through like her timeline is one of the things that like really hung me up and got me like confused for a while, because I like just seeing her in the pictures with the family or whatever. I was like, wait, so this person's been around, and I was like, okay, so this is a medical professional that's been maybe helping Sumi with, having some sort of mental break already of some kind, and maybe this is just her like projecting her distaste for her psychologist or psychotherapist onto a maternal role, like a replacement for her mother. You know what I mean? Like, so I was very confused about what her original role was and what her current status was throughout. So when he was calling, I was like, oh, he must be calling to talk to her doctors. And so that's the connection I made when we finally revealed, oh, she's alive. Oh, so this has been her doctor all along, and she's coming to like see, like to try and like set right what's going sideways for her at home. But that's not going to pan out, obviously. So like, yeah, this movie does not necessarily like, there's a lot of exposition that's unspoken, and that's great, but it led me down a few stray paths for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't coddle the viewer at all. You really have to. It's the type of movie where, first of all, it needs at least another viewing. I think to really get whatever, for me anyway, I needed at least 2 viewings to really understand what was going on. But yeah, and like you said, there's a lot of exposition that's left out, and I agree. I enjoy that, and it makes it more frightening in that way as well, because there's all that stuff that's kind of floating around in the film, like you keep thinking, what's going on? It's like all the stuff with the ghosts that very well shot. It's I guess it's frightening as something to see, but yeah, the deeper fear of the film is a mental health and a broken family, a piece of shit father who's in the end, essentially, and it's all about tragedy and the tragedy of loneliness. I think that's what the film is really about. Even among people, you're alone.
There's a dialogue that happens somewhere in the middle point of the movie, I believe, between Sumi and her father, and he apologizes for being a bad father, and her response is something along the lines of like, you're not even a bad father, like, but essentially saying he's not a father at all, like he's just absent in her life,
right? Which
is like so condemning and like gut wrenching to hear a daughter say that. But I mean, obviously he has not been doing his fatherly duty by her. Fuck you. I will say it's we watch a lot of horror movies, and more often than not, they're not particularly scary. But the reveal of their mother as a ghost, like floating above Sumi's bed, like truly scared me. Like it really got me in a way that I was not anticipating. I think this movie sort of lulls you into a very like purposefully but like methodical sort of beat by beat. I don't know. You sort of like you think you know what the movie's going to be, and you're sort of at this relaxed pace and trying to put the jigsaw puzzle together, and they hit you with this like truly terrifying ghost image, and I was just not really expecting that, I guess. And they do it a couple times throughout the movie, but I was just impressed by like how well the scares were handled. I felt they were very effective.
And I think
Um,
they did it a little different than even on my third viewing. I was like really paying attention to the horror aspects and how it builds, and it was a little surprising too because they do some jump scares like the trigger sound with like the snare drum and some things like that. But when the first experience with the ghost, when she's crawling away and the girl sees it, you kind of half expect for it to look back and it's gone, or it to be in a corner or somewhere. It's literally like in her plain view, crawling on the floor at first, and then presents itself and like gets closer. I think that's a pretty unique way, especially for your first viewing of the ghost, to reveal it that way, to where it really makes you sit with it. Where a lot of things want to do things, like I think of Insidious, where the thing's in the back and it's like a really quick look and then it's away and it's gone. This really just like has this whole scene with its ghost as this character almost presenting itself. You can see its situation and then with the blood and everything. So even there's like hints into about like what's going on here, but it really makes you sit with it. I thought it was a pretty unique way
That
to
I totally agree. I wanted to call that out too, because to me, that what that reminded me of, like directly reminded me of, was the handling of the Killer Bob character in Twin Peaks and like and in Fire Walk with Me. This sort of like, it doesn't ask you to like it isn't a quick flash. It isn't a loud sound and a scene like a cut to another shot. Like it's just lets you linger on this crawling figure. And for me, like I didn't realize that was supposed to be her mother. I didn't know who that was. I was like, okay,
Right.
so this movie's taking an entirely different tack than I was anticipating. And like I didn't really see that, like I didn't get what the clues were, you know what I mean? And by the time I'm starting to really suspect Sumi of being somewhat delusional, by the time I'm sort of coming to that, like I've written that off. I've written the whole ghost thing off as part of her delusion. And so to have that then come back into the fold, like this thing, it's like the movie changes its mind 3 times.
Right. I a couple things I can say about the ghosts. First of all, it kind of reminded me, but in a more updated, visceral way, of the ghosts in Nightmare Castle, the Barbara Steele film. From 65 or something like that. So there's a scene in that where she and another person character near the end, like the climax, they're walking towards the person who killed them, and Barbara Steele has her hair down over her face and things like that, and they're just approaching the camera. The film is not caring about flashing the ghost, just like hiding and peeking around places. It's just walking vengefully towards the antagonist, and then that whole thing, like what you just said, like the ghost just of Sumi's mother just coming towards the camera. I think it's so well done, and it surprises you. It's shocking. And another key aspect, I think, of the film and how it presents the ghosts. And I talk about this in quite a bit of detail in the video essay. The ghost is black. It wears black. It's not white. It's not the woman. It's not a white woman. Which is often how we see Asian ghosts, or ghosts in Asian film. And there are 7 adaptations of this folktale in film. There's one from the 70s that's quite good. The other ones, I think there's one from the 60s. I haven't seen it. I think that is available. I think the Korean Film Archive does have it.
I was trying to find the one from the 70s and could not. I was really trying to find that one.
You can get it from the Korean Film Archive. They don't have it on their YouTube site, but if you go to their offices, you can actually take the film out and you can watch it.
No, okay.
They don't often have subtitles with some of their films, but I mean, you can, it's not tough. You need to really to kind of get what's going on. But the original version of this film it's a silent film. It's from the 20s. So and then there's the shitty American remake, The Uninvited. But
I didn't even know that was connected in any way.
oh, it's a remake directly of A Tale of Two Sisters.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't really.
Yeah. So, but generally, like in the other versions of the film, the other versions of the adaptations of the folktale, the ghosts of the two sisters are always white, like they're wearing white, the white dread, the sobo, the sabo, the white dresses, long black hair. The ring, of course, long black hair, wearing white. Clydan, the snow woman, long black hair, unkempt, long, white flowing gown and things like that. This has been kind of the almost now the stereotypical Asian ghost in film, but A Tale of Two Sisters doesn't do that. They make them dark. They're wearing black. And then when we see Soo-yeon's ghost, every time, first her hand when she reaches out from under the sink, her skin is just it's moldy and oozing and disgusting. It's dark. It's green, yeah. And then when you see her crawl out of the wardrobe and with all this snot and ooze flowing out of the wardrobe with her and stuff like that, it's very purposely disgusting. And there is a connection in Korean folklore to that. In old folklore, and this is written in a book that's called you can translate it as the collected writings of Yongjae, or the assorted writings of Yongjae. In Korean, it's called Yongjae Chonghwa. And this is from the 1600s, 1500. Okay, I'm blanking on the date when it was written. But in that book, Yongjae, the author, states that ghosts are black. They're not white. They're black, and they're black because they spend so much time underground, and they're just slithering and moving through the dirt underground, and it causes them to turn dark. That's why they're dark. And so the film, I don't know if Kim, the director, was consciously connecting to that, and he wanted the ghosts to be a darker color, not the traditional white woman in white. But there is precedent for it in folklore that they're just dark and just kind of disgusting.
I noticed something, and this is not limited to the ghost, obviously, but I don't know if this is something that's was meant to be keyed in as a clue or some sort of like visual theme or whatever. But there's something about covering I think it's the left eye with a lock of hair that I noticed a few times through different characters some of which we later find out are the same person. So I started making this connection that, okay. And that's one of the reasons I thought that the ghosts, especially that first ghost, was part of the delusion. I thought that was indicating that whoever has this hair arrangement was an alternate personality of Sumi. So like, I don't know if that holds any water or not, or if that's just like, how they chose to depict scary things in this movie. But whenever somebody's like unhinged or acting strangely and turns out to be her, largely it will turn out to be Sumi, is what I was noticing. I'd have to rewatch again. That's a second watch question, but I don't know if there was something known about that.
Yeah, no, I never, like the hair. I've never noticed that. Good point.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that either. I mean, I did see some visual cues, not really related to the ghost, but relating to the three characters being the same personality. When the two girls get out of the car, they're like wearing red and opposite features. Like one, I think Soo-yeon has the skirt on, because she's got a very dull kind of tan shirt on, but she's got this bright red skirt, where Sumi has this kind of like cardigan red. And then later when the mom's getting ready in the background, she's got this like vibrant red, which then later kind of changes to a purple or what wallpaper that kind of matches that same color too. So they do a couple of visual cues of showing like these characters are the same. The idea that they all get their periods on the same day it's a big one. And a couple different things. But yeah, I love the visuals, like the wallpaper that we have, and that has nothing to do with the connections, but there's a lot of beautiful visuals in here that does have this like antique. The house, I love the house that they're in, but even the music changes when the car is pulling up to the house. It does have this kind of fairy tale antique look. Even the house feels Japanese Victorian style inspired. It doesn't look like a Korean like Hanok or anything. It looks kind of Japanese, which gives it that 20s, 30s vibe in Korea, which has this kind of like fairy tale vibe to it. I don't know. I just think it all works really well together.
Yeah, and the music too is very European. Is that kind of lulling ballad old style. And the director Kim Ji-yoon does that in a lot of his films. He does the movie The Quiet Family. Have you seen that?
So we did the categories, the Japanese version. We covered that one, but that's what A Quiet Family was, the original Korean, and then we talked about the Japanese version, but we haven't covered the Korean one yet.
Okay, yeah. So Kim and I spoke to Pierce Conran, again, I mentioned earlier, about that, and he said, he knows Kim Ji-yoon, and he said that's something that Kim often does. He very purposely doesn't make a house look like a Korean house. And there's some, it's an aesthetic choice that he has when he's filming. So the countryside, of course, is very, you can see the silver grass and things like that. And there are parts of the outdoor, although it predominantly takes place in the house, but there are outdoor settings as well that are very important, like the lake, which is actually connected directly to the folktale, because that's where the two sisters die in a lake in the folktale. That's why the lake's in the film. And so but yeah, he has this aesthetic choice to make films or his houses look like that, and he does it in a lot of his movies.
I mean, it makes it pretty like it makes it easier for non-Koreans to get in the door. You know what I mean? It's an aesthetic choice that makes it more marketable. So good for him on that part.
It's a good choice. Yeah, it's good point. Yeah.
Dumb question. What was Suyun eating that was growing there? It was like in like these red fruits or something right at the very beginning.
Oh yeah.
What are
I was trying to figure that out. It was like almost like something covered in paper, and I was like, are these fake plants? Is this an edible arrangement? What's going on?
I can't remember what that is. It's a flower.
I've seen them. I did not know that you could eat them though.
Yeah, like I do a lot of hiking and stuff like that, and I take my daughter hiking a lot, and we sometimes go hiking with my mother-in-law, and she always takes along a little butter knife, because if she finds things like wild mugwort or things like that, then we'll pick it. So we do a lot of stuff like that. It's not really what's the word called when you
foraging?
Foraging, right? It's not really foraging because we're not actively looking for something. But if we come across it, we'll pick it. My mother-in-law will say, "Oh, we can eat this," and we'll come back home. She doesn't live with us, but we'll come back to our house, and then she'll make up some jun, like Korean, Korean fried. They call it Korean pancake, but it's not sweet. It's not sweet. No, they're very savory. So yeah, so all these things. Yes,
I'm never gonna get a chance to use that context ever again. So
I'll bring it up again later in the episodes.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So, but what that is specifically, I can't. I think I did ask initially when I saw the film, like, what is that? And someone told me what it was. It was just a flower, and I was like, okay. And then I've forgotten what it is. I'll ask my wife. Maybe she'll know.
It's like it's the red color. It kind of brought me back to the red color again. And that first opening scene, I was really like, okay, there's a visual connection here. But I don't know if the red has, since she eats it, I don't know if it has any more connection. We do see a couple bloody scenes which are connected to the folktale, with the package in the fridge, and then also to the kind of dead birds. One ends up being in the bed. So in the folktale, one of the ways that the stepmom kind of not blackmails, but sets up the stepdaughter is she puts a dead rat in her bed to make it look like an aborted fetus, as if she has had sex out of wedlock to kind of like set her up. So there's some connections going on in the film directly that don't necessarily play with this story,
right?
But they connect to the folktale.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like little scenes like that with the bird in the bed. Although in the folktale, it's with Jianghua, the oldest sister, who is the mother-in-law skins a rat and then puts it in the bed.
That is brutal. Good Lord.
Yeah. And so the way that scene plays out in the tale, and some versions of the tale, is that she's asleep. The mother-in-law is asleep. She sneaks into the room. She puts the skinned rat in Hongyun, which is Sumi, in her bed, and then she sneaks back to her room. She pretends to sleep, and then she wakes up like she's having a nightmare. And then she says she has a nightmare, and she envisions that Hongyun is pregnant. And so the father's like, "You're nuts." And they go and they check, they pull the blanket back, and then they think, what is it? She just had an aborted fetus.
Like nothing I've ever smelled before in my life.
Damn.
And then Hongyun takes off, and then she commits suicide in the lake. And Jianghua takes out, and then Hongyun, the younger sister, which is Suyun in the film, she can't deal with all the depression, and then she's getting all the shit from the stepmother. Then she goes and kills herself in the lake as well. And then they both come back in the folktale. But so the bird in the film is directly acknowledging that scene in the folktale. Yeah, there are a lot of little scenes in the film that are little nods to the tale, like again, like the lake and stuff like that. Yeah. So, and the color red in Korean lore, red is specifically linked with death, but it's also linked with ghosts, and it's also a method of warding off evil. So things like Justin, you'll know the red bean porridge and stuff like that. The red bean, the patjuk and stuff like that. So Koreans in the past would smear this red bean porridge on their doors and stuff to keep evil ghosts from entering their homes. And there's a whole legend based around this, and especially they would do this on the winter solstice. And we have a whole episode about the folklore of the winter in our podcast, about the ghost lore and the folk traditions of the winter solstice, and why people would put red bean porridge on the doors of their homes to keep this evil ghost away.
More shit I gotta do now.
That's basically.
Make sure you cover the door. One of the first things I learned at my first job in Korea was don't write a kid's name in red. Because that's bad luck, and they'll die, or whatever. The color red associated with death. And they used to send letters like from the war, wasn't it? And the names were in red, and so it's kind of connected in that way.
Gotcha.
So, but there is a huge red connection just in the culture and stuff. So yeah, they were like, don't write a kid's name. And I was like,
right,
good note, thank you.
But you'll know, Justin, too, that it's okay, don't write the name in red, but you can stamp the name in red.
All the stamps are in red. Yeah,
the ink is red.
Which is weird to me, but whatever.
Yeah. So, but don't write in red. That's right. So there is so there is a connection. Red is deeply connected to Korean folk belief, connected to ghosts, evil, and things like that. So yeah, there are little things within the film. You're seeing all these different colors. I do think there's a connection to them, and if you go back, maybe like knowing that, you might be able to maybe kind of connect it. So the idea of her wearing red, if I'm remembering right, the stepmother, when we see her, when it's actually Sumi, she's never wearing red. I think that's right. Or is she wearing? Yeah, Sumi? I think so. No, Unju. So when we see Unju, the stepmother, but it's actually Sumi, the daughter, we never see Unju, the stepmother, wearing red.
I think that's right. Unju, for some reason, is always wearing a lot of blue, but she does have this red wardrobe like in her room. It like
Right,
looks
right.
very distinct, and then the wallpaper too sometimes has this kind of like red. Sometimes it looks purple, sometimes it looks red, hue too. But I think you're right. The girls wear opposite ends of red, but I don't think
Right.
the mom ever does.
Right. And I do think there might be a visual cue there. The idea of them wearing red, they're warding off the evil of the stepmother. I think that's a little thing there that maybe director Kim put into the film. So
Damn. This is way more informed than we've ever been on any movie.
So we were talking a little bit earlier pre-show regarding how like we are actively trying to cover more classic horror movies at least once a quarter or whatever. And just to kind of wrap up the conversation a little bit here, I don't know, would this be considered a classic Korean film or a classic Korean horror movie? From what I was reading online, this was the first Korean horror movie that ever played in the theaters in the United States, and it was apparently the most profitable Korean horror movie to date. I don't know if those numbers necessarily translate to a classic, but I wanted to pull everybody's opinion on that. Sean, what would you have to say to that?
absolutely. I think, like I've said, I think this is in the top 3 best Korean horror films ever made. So it's the second, I think it's the second film of the new wave of Korean horror, which started with Whispering Corridors in '98. Then it's gone up now through, you got, more recently, you got really excellent examples like The Wailing, Goksung, and a film, and another example, very popular, but a film that I really, really dislike, Train to Busan. I really, really don't like that film. But
I'd love to hear y'all's discussion on that. The disdain from your end.
Oh, I don't like it. But yeah, like all those films, yeah, definitely within the new wave, it's very, very important. And I think it's going to be remembered in the far future. Like, I think we talk about classics. Will they be films that in 50 years will people still be talking about them? I think absolutely yes. People will still be watching and being terrified by A Tale of Two Sisters.
One thing I always notice personally when talking about Korean horror, it's interesting that you bring up Train to Busan in general, because I feel like that one has the biggest recognition and appeal maybe overseas, but still people know like A Tale of Two Sisters and The Wailing. But within the country, I often see A Tale of Two Sisters and The Wailing brought up as like these two opposing, which one's the best, kind of. And it's interesting that Train to Busan is kind of left out of that discussion, because those two films have more of the unique Korean personality built into them. And so those are the ones that are often brought up, even though they're separated by like 13 years. But they're like, well, this shamanism over here of The Wailing and the way it's presented, or this folktale that's kind of brought to life in this horror film, which one? And so within Korea, those are the two that I often see as kind of like pitted as which one is number one in those kind of ways. And so from my perspective,
Freddy versus Jason situation.
Exactly. Yeah. So in my perspective, those are the ones who I always see like, what is the Korean horror film? And so that's why I personally kind of see it as like a Korean classic for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Just quick, for like Train to Busan, I completely agree. Koreans are kind of lukewarm on that film. They're like, it's fine. But I think for a lot of people, Koreans now are getting zombied out. They're kind of getting sick of zombies.
We've all been there.
Yeah. So
mom's making cocktails for us. I'll be zombied out real
Once
quick.
they're cocktails, they just lose their
right.
They cut you off after 2. That was the way to go.
Yeah. But I mean, like Train to Busan is, to me, it's a Hollywood film made in Seoul. So it doesn't have anything that's deeply Korean about it. That's one reason I don't like it. And I just think it's a very overly sentimental film, and so that's a different episode. So
Yeah, we won't get into it, but that movie,
we'll bring you on for
in my
Peninsula,
opinion.
which will never.
I had a blast watching that movie. Yeah, but it's just like an entirely different kind of film, though. Like it's like,
Yeah,
I don't know. You don't compare a Kubrick film to a Fast and Furious film cleanly. You just don't do it. Like,
don't do it.
That's true. Yeah.
It had like World War Z vibes, but just way more successful for my tastes, anyways. I don't know. Yeah, I get that it's very Americanized though. Like there is no difficulty in watching and understanding that movie. It translates perfectly, which I'm sure is why it is so known and successful. It's just very accessible, I think.
There's no
Well, I
barrier
think
for
that's
entry
why
for
Americans kind of liked it, because we already had our burnout from zombies, but Train to Busan felt different because of the different kind of cultural aspects, which aren't particularly Korean. Like from a Korean perspective, isn't like so unique, but from an American perspective, when you get in the World War Z's, you're like, oh, this is nice. So I think it does have more appeal in that kind of way. Well,
in any case, this is not what this podcast is about, but yes.
Yeah. So do we have any final points we want to touch on before we rate this movie?
I'll put them in my final reviews.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and do it. Rating A Tale of Two Sisters out of 5. Sean, you are the esteemed guest of the evening or the morning, depending on where you are. Why don't you kick us off, man? How would you rate A Tale of Two Sisters?
Yeah, 5, absolutely. And all around, I mean, as a narrative, it's a 5. And I think when we can look at films in different ways, where we can look at every form of art in different ways, where certain aspects have to be thought about. And I think the narrative of the film is excellent. And we can have movies where there's a really good narrative, but the language of the film isn't very good, or the cinematography isn't very good, but we can still enjoy it. But I think something like A Tale of Two Sisters, there's just so much put into the film, the narrative, the way the camera moves, the cinematography of that film, which again, just Pierce, I know, Robbie, you do have the Blu-ray. I don't know if you listened to Pierce's video essay yet, but I think it's called Always on the Move. And he talks about how director Kim's camera angles create a sense of horror. And he argues for that. It's very interesting, because Pierce is a filmmaker, so he can see things like that, that the audience just accepts. But yeah, cinematography, the acting is very well done, and keep in mind that both the young actresses, they were young. They were really quite young at the time. I can't remember how old they were at the time, but I think the one who played Soo-yeon just recently turned like 35 years old. So she was a teenager. I think maybe they were both mid to late teens. So good young actresses. Everyone in that was just good. And it's genuinely, as a horror film, it's genuinely terrifying. It's frightening. And frightening through, you have those ghost scenes and whatnot. There's comeuppance at the end for the mother, the stepmother. And like I said, I think the idea of loneliness, kind of being not knowing what to do and being trapped, but you're trapped with people that love you, or you should love them, but there's no way out. I think that's the deeper core of the horror, and that makes the film just way more enjoyable as a horror film. And then dramatically as well, just advances the film even more. Definitely 5 stars.
Fantastic. Juice, how do you feel out of 5?
I really like this film. I think there's a lot of good creative choices that I didn't get to touch on. There was the cinematography, there's a shot of the mom getting ready, but it's shot entirely through a mirror, in the way that we see her, the stepmom. Thought that was just a really cool shot. One thing that I didn't get to do a lot of negatives about the film itself. I think it might have been a more interesting choice. I don't know. Starting the whole movie off with her in the insane asylum, was a bit of a weird vibe for me because of the transition that it goes into next, because you're still not even really sure, is she now leaving the asylum to go to the house, or is this like from, switch perspective? And I was like, I think I might have enjoyed it better if it just started with that music and the antique feeling and the girls getting out of the car and then just being allowed to go on that journey, as opposed to starting off with something like, there's something sinister going on here, there's a mysterious girl or whatever. I think that might have played out with the mystery a little bit better. It's a minor thing though, and it's personal. The seizure scene, the dinner scene, that was a great scene. Apart from just the ghost aspect, like the tension between the people sitting there, like they don't want to be here, they do a great job. Her freaking out and then them talking in the car later, I thought that was a great aspect to the horror without just like you're looking at a ghost. But then I thought that they did a good aspect with the ghost in your face, but also they do the quick scenes too where she's under the sink, and they play with that, and I thought that was done really well. And then where she gets the stepmom in the end, I like that they didn't leave that so ambiguous, because so much of it was. Overall, I really like this film a lot. The cinematography is very beautiful. I love the musical choices. I love just the overall look and aesthetic of the choices, even like the wallpaper stuff going on with that, the house choice and everything, the wood, it just looks very beautiful, and fits that fairy tale kind of theme. I think overall though, I'm a person in the between the Wailing and the Tale of Two Sisters, I always lean more toward the Wailing. I think the ambiguity in this film allows for a little bit more confusion, overall narrative confusion, where so many things are tied to the original story, folktale story, that if you're not familiar with that, then like a lot of beats aren't going to make sense because they're not necessarily connected to this narrative. They're connected to the overall theme and idea, but not to this narrative. And so for that, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 overall. But I really, really enjoy it. It's top tier for me as well. Baudelaire, Rob, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I feel like I truly have to watch this 1 or 2 more times to like fully form my opinion of it. The first time watch, you're just really trying to connect the dots and just maintain pace with the story as it's coming at you. And also having no prior knowledge of the folktale, I had really no context for this story going into it. But setting all that aside, it's an extremely engaging movie. It's full of intrigue. Like as soon as it rolls out the gate, you're along for the ride. And it's so visually entertaining and clearly well thought out. As soon as it starts, you know that you're in the hands of a very competent director. You just feel that. You feel it in the craft of the movie. He knows exactly what he wants to do and how he wants to tell you this story. The acting is phenomenal as well. These young actors are killing it. And there's just this dread and tension throughout the entire movie it's very palpable. I love, there's a couple beats where they're building tension, and a lot of times I would say maybe maybe a less experienced filmmaker would lean on these sort of musical cues to tell you how you should be feeling, and he chooses very specifically where to do that and where not to do that. And when it's a tense moment, he'll have just complete silence and then drop a single piano key sting, and it's just, I love how specific the soundtrack is, I guess is what I'm really trying to say. The movie actually scared me, which is difficult to do. The ghosts are portrayed in a way that's very effective, and they force you to reckon with them, which I like quite a bit. It's just very rich in almost every way. I do need to watch it again though. I think I'm going to come in with a 4.5 here at the end of the day. Randy, how do you feel about A Tale of Two Sisters?
So good, Bob. Thank you for asking. Yeah, so I would say that for me, this movie, like similar to Rob, like I think it's been made pretty clear that, like Rob said, this initial viewing is very much a matter of survival, especially as an outsider to the foreign or to the intended audience, I guess I should say, and just not having some of this context, which thankfully Sean has brought to the table here for us. I had trouble following it, and there were a few times where I like threw my hands up, was like, I'm not sure what the fuck is happening here, and I'm just like, the thing is, like, I can swing with that. I watch quite a few directors that do that. I'm on the record as a big David Lynch fan, and he's always doing that kind of shit where it's very much about the feeling of a scene rather than the nuts and bolts logic of it. So I could ride with this movie on that alone, and on that level, I think it succeeds spectacularly. And I think that based on what I've heard here today, the story also succeeds in a way that I was not able to fully comprehend on this go around. So I'm going to leave this room to grow. But for my first viewing, I'm just going strictly off of that. And with, the little knowledge that I had going in, I would put it at, I think, a 3.75 is about where I want to land on it. So not quite at a 4, but to me, it's what it's bringing to the table in terms of stylishness and in terms of some pretty effective scares. It also kind of like muddies the water quite a bit for me in terms of trying to just get my head around the stakes of what's happening, or even just things like, who is this character? Like, who is this person to this person? Like, things that, normally I would argue in favor of showing, not telling, but when all of your rug pulls depend on you understanding those concepts, it makes it harder to really feel that rug pull when it finally comes, if you just don't have the opportunity to know it. And you would people would be correct in saying that I'm a dumb man, and I don't necessarily have the capability or the faculties to get everything on the first go. That's fair. But nevertheless, for me, I would put it at a 3.75 with room to grow. I haven't thought of a whole lot of like major negatives beyond that though. Like, I agree. Like, I think that the sparse but calmly dictated score, the acting, the way that the camera moves about, the setting, all of those things are done really, really well. And I feel like, based on, again, on this discussion, that there's a rich well to pull from in terms of conversation, in terms of, whatever. I think that the only other not major ding, but the only other ding for me is that, like, for a film made in 2003, this movie weirdly, like the it's tough for a movie to use dissociative identity disorder in a way that's, somewhat respectful of what that disease actually does to people and how it actually functions. And I don't know that this is like one-to-one by any means with reality of how that works for people or not. But I would say that, like, as a storytelling beat, it works fine. It works pretty well. I just don't like, at the time, at 2003, I feel like that trope, at least in America, we were just lousy with it. We had it kind of
just talked
everywhere.
about Session 9.
I know, exactly. So like, I feel, and like the rug pulls and all that stuff, I feel like that was so common around that time that if I had seen this when it had originally come out, I might have just chalked it up into a big barrel of movies that tried that out. Do you know what I mean? That like that may or may not have, like, I think this movie handles it better than most, and it's worthy of calling that out. But it's still sort of like, it's not like it kind of gets lost a little bit in the shuffle of those things of the tropes that were popular at that time, or it could have been. So I don't know exactly what I'm saying with that, other than to say, like, it could be that I was predisposed to sort of be dubious of that approach. So that might be what I'm feeling from that. Anyway, all that to say, I think 3.75 is a fair score. I'm still searching my feelings, and I'll have to watch it again and all those things. But for now, that's where I'm sitting.
Yeah,
Awesome.
if I could just say just quickly, so for me as well, the first time I watched it, really loved it, like I said, but at the same time I was really confused. This is probably one of the few films where I did a lot of work to get it. And I went back and I learned about the thing. And of course it was totally to my benefit that I was in Korea when it was released, and had access to learn all the kind of stuff that was connected to what inspired the film and whatnot. But yeah, it took a lot of work for me to get the deeper ideas of the film and how they're connected to the traditions and the lore and stuff like that. And so, yeah, Andy, I completely agree with all of your assessments, but I like that you said that there was room to grow, because I think that's exactly how I felt when I first watched it as well. And then I gave it the room to grow, and I put effort into learning about it. And then now, yeah, like I said, top 3 Korean horror films. Yeah, so love it.
When we get that beer, we'll talk about the other 2.
Well, I can say them now.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. Well,
might have to bring you back on first, so we don't.
Well, maybe when
exclusive.
That's right. When we finish recording here, I can tell you the other 2, and then one of them, if you guys want to chat about that, have me on again later. We can definitely do that. Absolutely. And I know that film actually is just now recently on YouTube. In decent quality as well.
It might be one I've been trying to find.
That's actually, this movie I had to watch in somewhat mediocre quality, because for whatever reason the stream was not coming in clean, and I had for at least a half an hour it was it looked as rough as like fucking
it was haunted.
What's that movie?
Haunted stream.
28 Days Later looks on an HD screen.
No.
Not looking great.
Yeah. That's a bummer.
Yeah. I was like, was this shot on digital? Because it looks like it looks like a shot on a Nokia. And then it cleared up a little bit, and I was like, oh, this is a streaming issue.
Well, with all of our scores combined, our aggregate's going to come in at a 4.3. Let's jump over into our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think about A Tale of Two Sisters.
Certified.
All right, ladies and gents, this is the Rotten Tomatoes segment, in which I'm going to ask these 3 gentlemen to guess within the best of their abilities what the aggregate positive score is on Rotten Tomatoes for A Tale of Two Sisters. And we're going to do both users and critics. We're going to start with our critics, as we usually do. There are, let's see, how many critic reviews do we have here? We have 61 critic reviews here. Not a massive amount, but a sampling size nonetheless. I'm gonna, Sean, I'm gonna give you a chance to go last so that you can see how this normally goes.
Oh yeah, okay.
Juice, why don't you start us off? What do you think that those 61 critics think overall? What percentage is positive?
I think it's going to be pretty high. We've talked about this certainly with several Korean films and just foreign films in general, where the critics tend to give it like a general foreign kind of boost. Like, oh, it's foreign. it's so
gotta be good.
It's so cultured. Yep. So I think it's going to be probably quite high. Plus, on the top of this, just really quality film. So I'm gonna say 85.
85. All right. Bob, how about you? Where are you landing on this one?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be fairly high. I think this one is probably a bit of a critical darling, as as far as I can see. I'll go with a 90. Let's get crazy with it.
Whoa, Bob.
Slow down.
Come on. What are you thinking? We don't have the power to support that. All right, Sean, how about you? What percentage of the reviews do you think are positive reviews?
Critics, right? Critics for the critics.
61 critic reviews on Rotten Tomatoes.
61. I agree with Rob. I think this is a critical darling. It was definitely a critical darling in Korea, still adored by Koreans, as Justin was saying there earlier. Still a movie my wife refuses to watch again because it was so frightening for her. I don't know. I think maybe around 90. Yeah, 90, maybe even a little bit higher. 92. Let's say 92.
Go 92. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're starting things off with a bang here. We got a ringy dingy. We got a dead on hit, and I hesitate to say this because the ego inflation is going to be insane. Juice, you hit it right on the nose. 85%.
That's the hell.
Someone's
already
cheating. Okay.
I can already feel the heat of you coming out and saying, like, I beat the experts. Burp, burp, burp. Congratulations to Juice on that one. Yeah. Now we're going to bust on over to the user score. There are 25,000 plus audience ratings for this film, so significantly more. Yes, it is. Sean, we're going to go in reverse order this time. What do you think
Okay.
the users fall on this scale?
I think the users are probably lower than the critics. But this type of film is usually that way. It was 85, you said, for critics.
85 was for the critics, certified for
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a movie that critics like more than the audiences, but there's a big chunk of the audience that either loves the film or thinks it's really good. I don't know anyone who hates the film. I'd say 80%.
80%. Okay. Bob, how about you?
Yeah, this is not an extremely accessible movie. I feel like there's going to be some frustrated watchers that are not willing to put in the time or effort to really suss out what the movie is about or what it's trying to say, much less watch it a second time. I don't think it's going to be crazy low, but I'm gonna go lower here with a 70. I'll take a 70.
70. All right. Juice, let's see. Can you do it double?
I think I'm just going to generally take the low into. I think people generally do dig on this, but with 25,000, that's quite a decent sample size. And I can totally see a decent amount of people like throwing their hands up and saying, I don't get it. It's not that good or whatever. So with that in, Bob, you said 70, Bob?
Yeah.
This is too low, but I'll take the low end and say 60.
60. All right. Well, Juice, you're correct. It was too low. Bob, also too low. It's an 83%, and Sean's going to take it away for us there. So it was pretty close, actually, to the critics.
Nice.
Very
Really
close.
close.
Second
Yeah.
time's a charm for me, I guess.
There you go.
The critics' consensus reads as follows: restrained but disturbing, A Tale of Two Sisters is a creepily effective, if at times confusing, horror movie, which sounds pretty fair to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I'm going to do as we usually do and read a negative review because they tend to be funnier. Let's go with this one. Yet another pointless, interminably paced Asian horror flick that's inexplicably garnered heaps of praise and adulation. Wow, somebody's mom got them a thesaurus for Christmas.
Wow.
That's the dude who's like the antithesis to the critics just generally giving it positive. Like,
He's the only one that I've seen. Like, I haven't gone through all of them, but just I usually like breeze through quickly. And he's the only one that I've seen on here that's like not in the like mid range as counted as a negative. You know what I mean? This is a 1.5 out of 4 this person gave, and other people are given like 3s of 5s, you know, things like that.
Okay.
So yeah, I thought that was pretty fun. That'll be it for our Rotten Tomatoes segment. Bob, why don't you take us away?
Awesome. Well, you know what time it is. It's not time for trivia. Actually, any trivia that I did have, which I had difficulty finding much on this movie, but Sean thoroughly covered anything that I was able to drum up.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and jump straight to our cooter of the week.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the week.
For everyone that is very baffled right now, Juice, what is a cooter and why do we hunt them?
Cooter's character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a cooter, but we want the cooter with the most points. The 5 points of cooterdom are sexual deviancy, manipulation, smug arrogance, overall look and attire, and overall patheticness. Sean, these are like the guys you want the killer to kill.
Okay.
The 70s, 80s characters you want the killer to get. So this one's a little tough because of the situation, but do we think we have a cooter in A Tale of Two Sisters?
I think we have some points that could be called out.
Yeah, maybe the
Yeah.
stepmom.
If nothing else. That's where I'm going to. As I was
Yeah.
thinking the stepmom on the basis of manipulation. I think that like it's, well, I guess manipulation and patheticness, honestly, because of her and like the origin story we get of her sort of manipulating her way into the family a little bit, just letting a child die out of vengeful spite for her sister. I would count that as pretty goddamn pathetic and manipulative to then, like, I don't know, strike up a marriage with the husband of this tragic family, you know, like
A little bit of
I don't
smug
know.
arrogance too, because her specific comment to Sumi of like, you might
You're gonna
regret
regret
this
this, yeah.
decision for disrespecting me or whatever, and knowing her
You'll live to
sister
regret
is
this.
dying right down the hallway. Not only is she not gonna save her, but she's gonna like taunt her sister to like make her live with the idea that she had something to do with it. That's pretty smug arrogance.
I've always been a creeper.
Damn. So she hits, so we could say manipulation, smug arrogance. Randy called patheticness out.
Sexual deviance. I mean, she is.
Oh,
sleeping
sure. Okay. Yeah.
With the the father while he's still married to his dying wife that she's supposed to
who
be
she's
assisting.
caring for.
Yeah. It's pretty fucked up.
She
Don't
hits
like
pretty
it.
hard. She's nothing particular for looking at tire. Everything's reg
No.
on that end, but yeah, I think she hits enough. She hits, even though she's not real most of the time. She's still in the
Yeah.
limited amount of time.
Well, I'm
she
trying to
gets.
think of her as her actual self. I'm trying to
Yeah.
separate out the delusional
But from what
version.
we know, like factually,
Yeah.
she hits it.
Just like facts on the
Alright.
ground, she's not a
Boom.
good person.
And
I
you
guess
know what?
evil.
She gets got too. She gets got.
Yep.
So, and you're okay with
simply
that.
evil.
Yep. Ghost
right.
got her.
That's right.
All right. Good.
I don't know if anybody else qualifies, so I'm down to just hand it off
That's
and
it.
put her
Yeah.
put her in cooter lockup.
Get her, your boys. All right.
Got her
Job well done.
That was quick and efficient.
Mhm.
Unlike
Like
us
we've
very
done
much.
it
Very much
hundreds of
unlike us.
times.
Yeah. So-
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and kick our boots off and talk about what we've been watching this week.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Randy, why don't you start, man? What you been watching this week?
Oh man, it's my list has been the same for like 3 weeks, just about. Just haven't had a whole lot of free time to watch anything. But I did manage to finish up my replay of the Nintendo 64 Paper Mario, which is still a very fun game and is absolutely a Zen Garden sort of game for me. That's just, easy enough, doesn't take much strategy, but engages me enough to where I'm enjoying myself quite thoroughly. And now it's done. It's in the record books. So I am halfway through season 2 of The Boys. I finally found some time to sort of like work through a few more episodes of that, and I enjoy it a lot. It's the comparisons to Mystery Men are like unavoidable. It's crazy.
That never crossed my mind, man.
It
No?
didn't.
No.
I've definitely heard it compared to Mystery Men, and it's not really necessarily
like
in a
it, though.
story beats way, not entirely anyway, but like even aesthetically, like fucking Ben Stiller and Billy Butcher wear the same things, like and
that's
they
true.
are
That's
rage-filled motherfuckers. Captain Amazing and Homelander basically have the same outfit and wear sponsorship shit and like all this. Like I don't know, there's something.
fair.
There's something intrinsically tied visually, if nothing else, between those two properties. And I wonder, I think The Boys comic came out in like what, 2002 or something?
Yeah,
I think
so 20 years.
Mystery Men. Okay.
Mystery
So I
Men
think
was,
Mystery
like,
Men was like edged it
98?
out by like a few years. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no
So I don't know.
Casanova Frankenstein though. So
No Casanova Frank. What a goddamn shame is what that is.
Yeah, it is.
And yeah, the other comparison that I can't stop seeing now that I've thought of it is Billy Butcher and Murdoch from the Gorillas. I can't stop seeing those fucking guys. The way they like the accent, obviously, but like just the rogue attitude and the disregard for people's safety and all that shit, and just doing whatever you want. I don't know. I'm not that deep into the Gorillas lore or whatever, but I've seen a lot of the music videos that pretty much everything about that character is based on. And yeah, I just can't stop seeing it. Anyway, moving on. I'm enjoying it. The Boys is fun. And I did watch Bodies this weekend,
Ooh.
which I'm a little bit medium on, but which
it's getting
I
a
think,
lot of
like,
buzz.
it is, and I don't know that I agree that it deserves that much buzz. But
That's good to know.
yeah, I think that it is a serviceable, slasher adjacent whodunit sort of deal. I think it's fun on that level. It kind of has a bit of a burn after reading through line, and I know that's a weird comparison, but when you see the movie, you'll understand what I mean. And there's at least one cameo that is in there that I was greatly appreciative of, and it was certainly not Pete Davidson, because I don't have a feeling about him. Apparently, a lot of people do. I don't feel anything about him, good or bad. So, anyway, medium on it, and that's about it for my watch this week.
Right on. Sean, you been watching anything this week?
Yeah, what did I watch this week? For something new, I watched Incantation on Netflix, which I think it's a Taiwanese film. It's shit. It's not very good. I mean, it has a lot of potential, but it's a found footage film, and it goes through all the tropes of found footage films to really kind of try to shoehorn the idea that everything's found footage. So there's, for example, like put a character putting a CCTV in their home. Okay, you can let that pass, but then putting one in their child's backpack as well, so you can see when the kids going to school. It's like it's just weird when they do stuff like that. It had a lot of potential, though. It really rings a lot with the tropes of folk horror, where someone from the outside goes into a rural area and then they don't understand the traditions, kind of like the Wicker Man kind of thing, and then they end up getting screwed because of it. So there's potential, and I think it would have been a lot better if it wasn't a found footage film. That was absolutely pointless. Didn't need to do that. And I rewatched an old favorite called The Boxer's Omen. I don't know if you guys have seen that. It's 1983. Three. I can't remember if it's a Chinese or a Hong Kong film, which I think it's Hong Kong. But it's kind of a mashup of kung fu films, fantasy, and horror films. So there's a scene where this guy fights one of the antagonists, and then he just ends up just fighting his floating head. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So
I'm looking up images of this movie right now, and wow, I gotta watch this.
Yeah, it's excellent. It's really, really good. And I was thinking a couple nights ago, I had some time, even though I've been really busy with tourism, the tourism boom, and doing so many tours recently, but had some time a couple nights ago, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen that in ages. I'm gonna throw in The Boxer's Omen, and I still love it. It's just fantastic. Pour a drink when you're watching it, though, because it's just it's so bizarre. It's kind of like Big Trouble in Little China, but with a lot more kind of a lot more horror kind of injected into it. And yeah, it's just great fun, fantastic fun. I'm pretty sure John Carpenter saw it and that inspired him to do Big Trouble. I'm almost sure of it. In terms of TV, for the last several months, I've been rewatching The X-Files. I'm on season 8 now, the shitty season when Mulder's gone.
You got that on Disney Plus? I saw it on my Disney Plus. Yeah.
Yep. So that's right. So yeah, I'm on like season 8, episode 3 or 4, and it's like Mulder's gone. It's just not as cool. So
T1000 just doesn't fill those shoes, I hear.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. He was all right, but no, he's no Mulder. So that's it. That's what I've been watching.
Awesome, man. Juice, what about you?
Kind of like Randy, like not a whole lot new, because we mentioned Prey last time, right? Prey was
I think I'm pretty sure
so. Yeah, since then that was the last new one I watched, even though I'm trying to go through it. I still haven't been able to find a stream of The Innocent, so I finished season 2 of The Boys like Randy. It's a little too bummerish for me, though. Sometimes like I have to take it a little slower, because it just like they'll say things that are too on point, and I'm like, well, that really bums me out, because that's true.
Yeah.
So, damn. So kind of like Black Mirror, I'll take it a little slower. But yeah, other than that, still burning through Bob's Burgers. I'm hoping they'll throw up the movie on Disney Plus soon, but I haven't seen it. But I just went through the Halloween episode. It got me in like great spooky vibes, so I'm getting excited now for that. I did find out there is a Grinch Halloween movie.
Yeah.
Did you guys know that? So
Yeah.
I've never seen it before. It's on YouTube. I like started watching because I was like, is this legit? And I was like, let me save it for maybe September. So I watched like the first 5 minutes to make sure it was legit, and it is, and it's got its own little songs and everything. So I'm gonna hold on to that one for spooky season. But
Hell yeah.
that was making me think of Naturade's like watch for October. And I was like, maybe I should recommend that one, but I went with Garden Wall instead. So that's it.
You got
That's how you got to. That's all I've been watching. Bob, finish us up. What you been watching, guy?
Yeah, man. A couple things to mention here. I wanted to give a shout out to another podcast based in Jacksonville called Cauldron of Emotions. They're doing this thing. They partnered with Sunray, which is the local art house theater here. And every month they're doing what they call Nick at Night. It's like the second Wednesday of every month. They're showing a Nick Cage movie, and they kicked it off. They kicked it off this week with a true classic, Face Off.
Nice.
So we went to watch that, and what an insane relic from the 90s. Like, I'd seen it a couple years ago, and even having seen it that recently, I just forgot how ridiculous the dialogue of this movie is. And it makes me wonder, like, Nick Cage is doing his Nick Cage thing. He's all the way up, going to 11 or whatever. It makes me wonder, like, if he had free range to just riff and like make up his own lines, or like it wasn't scripted, and because either way, like whoever came up with the words coming out of his mouth, it's ridiculous. Absolutely.
I think he did get quite a bit of leeway there. Is my recollection anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if he's like trained in improv, but he's talking about like sucking people's tongues and just absolute insanity. Very, very fun movie though. I recommend watching it if you haven't yet.
Also with a drink.
Yes, highly recommended. But check out Cauldron of Emotions, and if you're in town next month, their September movie is going to be Mandy, which is
nice.
A high recommend for me if you haven't seen that one yet. Other than that, I checked out the WNUF sequel, and its title is The Out There Halloween Megatape, which I will never be able to remember that. It's on DVD right now. If you liked the first WNUF special, I think you'll really enjoy the sequel. It's a little bit different. It's almost split up into 2 parts. The first maybe third of the movie is almost doing a riff on a sort of daytime talk show, where they're almost like a Ricky Lake kind of thing, I guess, and they're bringing people on and interviewing them about like their crazy lifestyles, and it's all related in like the paranormal and ghost hunting and aliens and stuff like this. And then the second half of it, it's sort of more along the lines of the original WNUF, where like the news crew is on site somewhere, and they're interviewing people and trying to suss out information about a sort of alien based thing that's happening. And they do all the interstitials with the commercials that are made to look like back in the 90s or whatever. And there's some pretty solid bonus features on there as well. There's a couple feature length commentaries. One is from the director that's very insightful, and the other is like somebody doing this like full-on character, and it's ridiculous. I recommend
Character
checking it out.
for commentary.
Yeah. So like it's Tony's Tate Dungeon, I believe, is like
is that the character?
Yeah, it's the character, and also the fictitious company that put out this relic that they resurrected from the 90s and put it on DVD and put it out for you to check out. So it's Tony on there, and he's got this New York accent, and he's just going ham. It's pretty funny. I recommend checking out both WNUF specials for sure. It's good stuff, and it's prime time for Halloween season, which is right around the corner. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've been watching this week. Let's jump into our last segment, which is of course our Hotline Screams.
Hotline Screams.
If you are listening and would like to call in and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. We do have one voicemail this week, and I forgot to screen it, so we'll find out who it's from in real
It just
time
came in.
together.
It was pretty
Yeah.
new.
It's just going to be a string of racial slurs.
Well, I will do some
Hello,
editing.
friends. This is Clay calling back. I called once before. I live in Hamilton, Ontario, and I had that really fun question about what movie shoots you guys have seen before. I don't know if you remember me, but it doesn't matter. Anyways, I just wanted to call back again because I had another couple of questions. I first wanted to know how somebody can go about getting into this Slack channel that you guys always talk about. I would love to join. I think that would be really fun to chat with like the group, but yeah, I haven't heard you guys mention how to get on there. So let me know if it's a thing. I would love to join. Also, I also had questions about the sound bumps that you guys use and like some of the little clips that you guys use. I always laugh out loud at some of them while I'm driving around, and I don't know where they're all from. And I wonder if you guys could give us a little bit of a walkthrough of where like your most commonly used ones are from, like what films they're from. What's that one with the lint liquor? That girl who yelled, like, I piss myself laughing every time you guys play that one. Anyways, I almost never have any clue where they're from, so I would love to know. Anyways, yeah, guys, keep doing an amazing job. I love the pod. Thanks. Bye.
Randy is beaming with pride right now.
Oh no,
That's
I'm
from an old gum
curling in
commercial.
shame.
That was from
Yeah.
an old gum commercial, right?
Yes, I
like
think it
no
was
matter how dirty
Trident.
you are, your mouth is clean or whatever.
Dirty mouth.
And so
Clean it up with Trident or Stridex.
You
Stride X gum.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's from the. I kind of like the air of mystery around some of the other ones. So for me, I'm gonna just say I don't want to go too deep down my well because I want people like skiving on my bumps. You know what I mean? But for that one, it is, I believe, a Trident commercial of some kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's as far as the Slack goes, Bob, you've been
Yes.
slacking on Slack promotion. What are you doing?
I feel like I had mentioned it at the end of literally every show, but Clay, if you have missed it, you want to join us on Slack, just reach out to us on any of our social media platforms. You can send us a message on Facebook or on Instagram, Twitter, just search Straight Chilling Podcast, and then I'll just send you a link to join in on the Slack. It's real simple to do, but I just find us on social media somewhere and I'll send you a link so you can join up. And yeah, Slack is a lot of fun. If you guys are listening and are unfamiliar with it, it's just a group of, Randy, Justin, and I are in there, but it's a group of listeners of the show. And we just talk pretty much every day about, horror movies, yes, but also just day-to-day stuff, everyday life. We've got a channel for like health and fitness, cooking, we trade recipes and stuff like this, just anything and everything you can think of. So it's just another way to engage with us, but also with the broader Straight Chilling audience.
Just hit
hit
Bob
us
up
up
on any social media.
If you sign up for it, there's like a 60% chance you'll end up having your own podcast within a year.
Right.
Just saying.
So like
that seems to be how that
15
works.
Podcast in our squad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
yeah. Thanks for calling, Clay. Definitely good to hear from you again. Also, again, if you guys are listening, want to call in for next week, hit us up at 904-638-3231. Do you guys have any prompts you want to throw out for next week?
I have one question.
Who are you calling a cootie queen, you lint liquor?
Who are you calling a cootie queen, you lint lickers? Tell me.
you.
Call in and let us know.
I still want some spooky season recommendations. It's creeping up. Call
Yeah,
in. Let us know. Give me some good stuff to watch.
Yeah. Hidden gems. Bring them.
Hidden gems for sure.
We want your gems.
Give us your gems.
Give them to us. Yeah, so that's going to do it for us here at Straight Chilling. Sean, again, massive thanks for sitting in with us, man. It was really great chatting with you.
Thank you.
If you would like to take the time and remind people where to find your podcast and other things, feel free to do so, man.
Sure, yeah. So anything connected to Dark Side of Soul, just search Dark Side of Soul in Google. Everything's on darksideofsoul.com. So you can book our tours there. So if you're in Korea, come join the tour. Runs 5 nights a week. I do the weekday tours, and then Joe McPherson does the weekend tours. You can get information about our comic book there, and of course the podcast. So everything's darksideofsoul.com. And we're on
Awesome.
Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff too.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will be back next week with a brand new show. As always, we're going to be tackling another Patreon pick. This one is A Requiem for a Dream, as chosen by Kelvin. Thank you for ruining our day, Kelvin. That's such a heavy movie. So slam that into your eyeballs. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at STR8_chilling, on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast, and send us an email at straightchillingpodcast.com. Hit us up on any one of those social media outlets. If you want to join in on the Slack, I'll send you a link so you can do so. And until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.
All right.